Welcome to Life Burst. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Matt, and today an insight into the life of a Vietnam veteran.
Yes, welcome to Life Burst with Matt and Sarah. And today we have a Vietnam veteran, which I'm very excited about today, Phill. Thank you, Phill, for joining us here on Life Burst.
Thanks for letting me come along.
Now, take us back to the very beginning. Where did life start out for you, Phill?
Life started out for me in Marion. And if you ever go down Finnish Street in Marion, you can still see our original house, which was the old Marion Hotel.
Okay.
Which is heritage listed, and I hope it never, ever gets knocked down.
Mm.
So as you turn off of Marion Road, turn into Finnish Street, you'll see this lovely old building on your right, built in 1851, 13 rooms and 2 cellars. And this is what I was introduced to as a little bubby on the 20th of March 1946.
Okay. So are you saying that you lived in there, or was it actually a hotel and your parents owned it?
Oh, sorry. The licence was never in our name. The licensee moved up to the Flagstaff, Flagstaff Hotel, as I've been told, and Mum and Dad took it over, and Mum wanted to run a boarding house. She said she thought she could make some money with the boarding house. With 13 rooms, you see, and 5 kids. Well, then we only had 3. There was my brother and my older sister and me, and then 2 more came along after.
Right.
So we all had our own bedrooms, and it was just a monstrous playground on an acre of land, a big triangle. So we owned all the land at the back, and grandfather grew fruit trees there. And we had a shed to play in. We had cubby houses in the backyard. It was just a great time. And Marion in those days, you could stand in the middle of Finnish Street and see 1 car an hour. It was just amazing. There was no traffic. And incidentally, a lot of people didn't realise that Marion Road didn't always go all the way through. It stopped at the Sturt Creek. So it was just a far bigger job for what highways could do, is to put that all in a concrete drain, which they did in 67, 68 when I was away. So Marion Road then goes through, but in my day, all the traffic came down Finnish Street, down Township Road, down Norfolk Road, and came back onto Marion Road. That's the bus, trucks, billy carts, everything. It was just impassable because there was a big fence there and a wandering natural creek.
So even then it was a very quiet part of the world, but you had all this land and this home to play in with your siblings.
Yeah, and fruit trees, we could just go and pinch our neighbours' grapes, and and the kids used to come home from school and they'd end up at my place and let's go down the creek. So we'd all go down the creek and play around down the creek and go into the grapevines and have bunches of grapes this big, and watermelons were growing not far away, and the guys would leave the watermelons there that were tarted or sun damaged or something, so we'd chop open watermelons, and it was just great. And we'd, well, anyway, that's when I started school, of course. And for the first couple of weeks, I can remember Mum taking us in the car. And then from there on, I had to ride my bike with my sister. And then the days of the steam train, so we'd ride all the way from Marion Road up to Ascot Park School and stand by the train line when the huge puffing billy would go past.
Right.
And they were monsters, you know, and you'd stand there and you'd just shake because this huge train would go rattling past, and then you'd carry on onto Ascot Park School.
So that's what you did for fun? You just
stood
next to a train?
Yeah, and then on the way home, you wouldn't go straight home because you had to go and visit a couple of mates, or go and dilly-dally down around the back streets and whatever. And then from Ascot Park School, I went right through to grade 7. And then from there, went to Mitchell Park Boys Technical High School.
Okay, yeah.
Which was, a bit of a culture change because it was an all-boys school. But my favourite subject was woodworking because my dad was into wood. He used to make doors, had furnace doors.
Okay.
But before that, they made caravans, furnished caravans. So my great love of caravans started at a very early age. And
I want to know more about the 13-room hotel that.
okay,
yes.
we'll go back to that.
Yeah, let's go back to that. What did you do with the other rooms that
Oh,
weren't
well,
being
that's
used?
when Mum did start a boarding house.
Okay.
Because we had a big long passage down the middle of the house where Dad would put in the petition here because he could knock up a quick petition and say, right, that's for the... There was a family there of Ceylon people, Ceylonese. Back in those days, it was called Ceylon instead of Sri Lanka. And this husband and wife made the greatest curry you've ever tasted. And I still can't replicate that curry. Anyway, they invited us to tea and we'd have their curries. And then we'd leave and walk down our passage. And we still shared the same bathroom, so we had to come through the door, go up to the bathroom, because we only had one bathroom for many, many years until...
I'm sorry, there was 13 rooms and there was only one bathroom in the whole...
Yeah, oh yeah. And then when they left, we had a single guy there, and then Dad used to drink with him and get all the stories of Holland because he was Dutch. And eventually people would come and go, and I can't quite remember. Oh, and then the toilet was out the back.
Okay, so it wasn't an indoor toilet.
No.
Yeah.
And it served like... It was originally the ladies and the men's, but then that became the boarders and our toilet. And you'd have a candle in there because it was all dark. Now, this is in the 50s.
Yeah.
And it was so primitive back then, you can't believe it. You know, we had septic tanks and the bus used to come past, well, the bus stops right out the front of now it's six, we used to call it 8 Finner Street, Marion, but now it's 6 Finner Street, Marion. For some reason, we lost 2 numbers. Anyway, as Marion's, a great historic place, you can just drive around all the back streets in that little area where there was quite a regular little community, like one shop, one telephone box, and a grain store. And if you get into the back streets, you can work it out where they... Now it's all... And very few back streets because it was all market gardens. And the market gardens didn't like selling off anything. So they thought, we're just going to keep this bit. And so we drive around Marion now. Where's all the back streets? There isn't any.
Yeah.
Because they've lost them all.
Yeah.
So,
certainly a different era to what Marion's known for now.
Yes.
It's a part of Adelaide that is a shopping hub, and
Yes.
it's central, but a hugely different world.
yes. Anyway, that was the Marion that I grew up in, and pedalling all the way down to Ascot Park Primary School, which I still have probably 2 friends that were in primary school with me. One I don't see that often, but the other one I see quite regularly.
So with the creek, what type of things did you get up to when you were in the creek?
Exploring a creek at 10 years old.
Amazing.
It's amazing. We just go in shoes, no boots. We didn't have boots, so we just go and come home with sodden socks and it was certain places you couldn't go any further past the Finner Street Bridge. That was a no-no because you were getting away. And then down the end of the street was my good friend Rowley, who I still see today. I saw him on the weekend, a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, and we'd either be down at Rowley's place investigating the creek down there or come up to our place and wander up. But then it used to flood. And when it flooded, we'd all get panicky because the water would come almost up to the hotel, the Finner Street and Jacob Street intersection. Because you wouldn't believe the water. It was just sheeted everywhere. Used to come over at about the intersection of Sturt and Marion Road and start there because that's a bit of a low point and you couldn't get past, so you had to turn around and come back again. But, now it's in a concrete drain that can handle a lot of water. But in those days it couldn't handle. And Dad would he'd sit up there for a couple of hours thinking, the creek's coming up. But it never actually got to our door. Just enough, you could paddle out and then you could see it getting deeper all the time.
Yeah.
It was, and market gardens all around. We could go and get tomatoes over the road. Oh, the Scout Hall was over the road too, which I did join the Scouts, the Cubs and the Scouts.
I love this picture of a very different world that
Yeah,
you're
I
painting.
agree.
But some would remember, some of our viewers and listeners, but very different. Well, we're only up to the beginning of your story. We're chatting to Phill. This is Life Bursts, and we'll be back right after this. Thanks for joining us on Life Bursts. We are chatting to Phill, talking about growing up around Marion in South Australia, and a very different place it was back then. But you moved on to trade school and pursued some carpentry.
We're not quite that quick.
All right, take us
Oh,
back.
okay.
Okay, so I went to Mitchell Park Boys Technical High School.
Okay, yes.
And Mr. Mitchell, as the name applied, same as the district, was the headmaster. But then I came home at 14, I think I might have been 14, and to Mum saying, your father's had a heart attack. Oh my God. You know, and I didn't understand. I thought it was a disease. And Dad's in bed, you know, as you'd be. And I said, I can't come in. And he said, no, come in. I said, I might catch it. And he said, you don't catch heart attacks, come in. So then I sat on the bed and talked to him. He said, yeah, my heart's not good. He said, I've got to take it easy for a while. And take it easy he did. And then Mum decided, well, this is not going to bring us any income in. So she decided to open a shop in the front of that house that we're still in Finnis Street. Mm-hmm. So if you look very closely, you'll see that there was a rather large window put in because we had to have some income coming in. So Mum started a dry cleaning agency in there, and she was always a worker, Mum, you know. So she's setting up this shop, and Dad found that he could work in a lighter job rather than work at Furness lifting, because they were doing jail doors at that particular time, because there was a big expansion in jails around South Australia. So the doors were like that thick and very heavy. So he wanted a lighter job, but he had a friend over the road at a place called Shop Fitting Industries. And Shop Fitting Industries made roller skates, apart from everything else that we made. And then he said to me, because he went back to work, he had a rest for about 6 months, I think. And then he went back to work in this lighter job, working for a chap by the name of Horry Weepers, a great guy, and making roller skates, but out in the factory if we had one little area. And then he said to me, you're coming to work because we need to get you working. Pat's already working, Len's working, that's the older two.
So you're still 14, 15?
I've moved on to 14 and a half.
Yeah.
Because I'm only 14 and a half when I started work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I did I left in October of my second year. So that was the end of school, start work. What am I going to do today? You're coming to work with me. And it was as quick as that. It was after the long weekend of October. Mm-hmm. And packed my lunch and off we went to work together. And because Dad was driving, and those days you couldn't get your heart repaired like I had done. I'll tell you that later. Anyway, so there I am, and I can get my little hand in the boot. So the roller skating, they had a proper frame on them. They were professionally made, and I had to get my hand down to bolt the plate to the bottom of the sole of the Rossiter boot.
Important job.
Yeah. But other things, you know, like I learnt to do other things. And he would show me how to make these rollers. So we're only working in a room half this size. And we would produce 30 a week, maybe. And they all went into John Martin's at £20 a pair. And then the boss would say to me on a Friday, Phill, I want you to put 50 ladies and 50 gents in the boot of my Fairlane. Where are you going? I had to call him Mr. Weepers, not Horry. Oh, no, that was a no-no. Well, I did call him Horry, but that's another story. Anyway, so I'd pack all these in the huge boot. I could get in the boot. And he'd drive to Mount Gambier and put on roller skating in Mount Gambier or Mount Barker or somewhere here, somewhere there, because he owned the Elizabeth skating rink, but he needed to get more income in because he just loved making money. Anyway, he brought in the skating to a lot of small country towns where he would go off and someone else would run the skating rink at Elizabeth. Because a lot of the Fridays and Saturdays, and this went on for 2 or 3 years, that we would drive, and there's no traffic on the road. You could get to Elizabeth in 3/4 of an hour, whereas nowadays it takes you an hour and a quarter.
Yeah.
And we would drive up to Elizabeth, Dad and I, and we'd pick up Mrs. Weepers on the way because Horry was going to skating that way, and we'd take her up there, and then put everything into place. But we didn't have to take the skates up there because he had a stock of skates up there. Mm-hmm. So he had, I don't know, he must have had 700 or 800 pairs of skates to his that he could use. And off we'd go to Elizabeth, and then we'd skate all night. And I used to pay. Until I said to Horry one day, because Horry was a huge,
Really tall.
Mr.
Yeah.
Weepers, do I have to pay because I'm working in the skate room? Who's making you pay? I've always paid. I've always paid 50 cents. Oh, it might have been 50 cents. This was back in 1960, 62, 63.
Yeah.
And he said, no, you don't have to pay. So then I'd walk in, I didn't have to pay. But it was great. And because his son worked there as well, Alan. And Alan and I are still good friends. Alan's a bit older than me. So we had these games that used to get out on the skating rink, and he'd push me along. Oh, I can't remember what we used to call it. Anyway, I'd be crouched down, and Alan would be pushing me at top speed, and we're going round. We've got to beat everyone else. And we'd get out in front. Alan would keep pushing me, and I'd be down, and my legs are killing me because you're crouched in that position.
Yeah, the whole time.
And you come around the corner and tumble over. Oh, God.
Yeah.
And, from 1 or 2 nights skating a week, they'd someone to break their ankle or break a leg or break enough. Horry'd pick them up, take them to the hospital and get them patched up. It was a great time.
Yeah.
That Elizabeth skating rink is no longer there.
Right. End of
It
an
got,
era.
the swimming pool was next door, and they bulldozed it, made the swimming pool bigger. But that was so much fun. But apart from that, we weren't only making skates, we were doing shop fitting.
Right.
So we would go into town and we would work in Rundle Mall or, with Rundle Street in those days, or somewhere. And every shopping centre, as they were building shopping centres around the districts, we'd get the delicatessen and the chemist shop or this, that and the other. Because there was about 12 people there. So we'd make the counters, do all the shelving. I was cutting glass. Every time he did a shop front, he'd salvage the glass and take back huge sheets of glass to the factory, lay them out on a table, and I would be cutting glass at probably 16 then, making a terrible job of it, mind you, and breaking off these pieces of glass. And I'd say, these shouldn't be cut by me, because we couldn't do the edging. We didn't have an edging machine. I'd sandpaper all the edges. And card racks. Have you ever built a card rack with all those tiers in it?
Yeah, okay.
So we used to, and they'd always be the apprentices, because there were several other apprentices there at the same time. And there was just so many things we made, shelving, counters. And it was the grounding for everything I do today. I did all come back to me thinking, oh yeah, we used to make a counter like this, or we used to make card racks like this. Because we had jigs, we'd make up jigs. You didn't make them by hand, you'd make up the jig so you'd work back to front in the back of the card rack, screwing it all together. And then it had to be painted, so we had a painter that would spray paint them. Or if not, Dad would spray. When he came out of the skate room, he'd paint as well. And the welder.
So there was a fair bit of on-the-job training for all of this, I imagine.
I learnt to weld.
Yes.
I learnt to use the guillotine. We had a guillotine that could cut up. And then we started covering the jail doors. Can you imagine a door that took 4 people to lift? And we'd put it up on trestles, and then we'd cut the sheet of metal. Then we'd fold all corners, except for the last one, you had to sort of half do that, and tap them in, and they were all soldered all the way around. So that, and then in the hatch, you cut a hatch out. The jobs we used to do, it was incredible.
Sounds like you've left your mark on a fair bit of South Australia in
the
those early days.
In jail doors.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, shops.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
and roller
then,
skates.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get away much, like out of the city. We did most of our work in the city and the suburbs, because at that time they were building Parkholme Shopping Centre, Welland Shopping Centre, Marion Shopping Centre, St Agnes, and we seemed to get the deli and the chemist shop in each one, and that became very interesting. And then eventually, it came to the time when I decided, I think I'll leave. I'd finished my apprenticeship, I'd done everything I wanted to do. I had my car, and I'm thinking, I need a bit more spark in my life. So that's when I decided to join the army.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Great place to pause.
That is.
What an adventure so far.
Yes.
Yes. Here on Life Burst with Matt and Sarah. We'll be back straight after this. This is Life Burst with Matt and Sarah. Today we are chatting with Phill, and we've got up to the part of his story where he wanted a bit more spark in his life. So he joined the army.
So the family had grown up to this point. We now had two younger sisters, Heather and Sandra. So there's 5 of us now. Anyway, the shop's not going too well, and Dad's back at work full time, and everyone's earning money apart from Sandra and Heather and Sandra. So I decided, well, I had to register. I'm not sure how I registered or whether I did or didn't. But I got a little card back to saying your number has not been drawn or whatever it said. I've still got the card at home. We'll have to get that one day. At this point of time, you will not be called up. You're not wanted for national service.
So the government sent you this card?
Little card to say, oh, and Dad read it and he said, oh, good, you're not going to the army. And I said, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, Dad. Because this time we're in a bit of friction when you're 19, 20.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know yet. Anyway, I rang up the recruiting office. And I did that from a call box because I didn't want to use the phone at home. And they said, oh, come in. Come into Peary Street and we'll have a talk. So I went into Peary Street on a Saturday morning. And he said, the recruiting major, or whatever he was, so you want to volunteer? I said, yeah, I think I'll do that. And he said, all right, no worries. We'll put you through a medical and you can go and join the army. And you can go in with the Nationals. I said, it's only 2 years, is it? He said, yeah, it's only 2 years. You could do 3 or 6 if you wanted. I said, no, I think I'll only do the 2. Thanks very much. So I felt, I haven't told them a word. So I trundled off into town on a Saturday morning and went in for a medical. And they said, oh, yeah, you got a little bit of a hearing, that thing in me. But no, you'll be fine. So then I came home and told Dad. He said, you what? I said, I'm joining the army. He said, don't you know there's a war on? I said, what war?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, I have read a bit about Vietnam. He said, so you're going to go off and get killed? No, I'm not going to go off and get killed, Dad. He did not like it. I love my dad, but he was a fair, strong drinker and he smoked heavy. And
So you're saying that you went off and volunteered,
yeah.
and you didn't know that there was war?
Oh, I sort of.
Okay.
I sort of.
Okay.
But, and I wasn't quite, I wasn't 21, that's right. I was still 20.
Yeah.
And at this time he's saying, you can't join up because you're not 21 yet. You got to do as I say before you turn 21. I said, I'll be 21 in March. So, I'm going to go. There was a lot of opposition, a lot of, arguments.
Yeah.
Because Mum wouldn't say much at all, but Dad was pretty vocal. And I loved him to death, but gee, I want to do what I want to do, Dad. I want to see a bit of Australia. He said, you'll see more than that. Anyway, that year, his brother had come over from New South Wales and he wanted a hand. This was before I joined the army. This was back in the middle of the year in 66. So he was in the army in Darwin and he got injured in Darwin. Anyway, he wanted someone to come with him to get one of his eldest son had broken down in Kalgoorlie and he wanted to bring him back. So he said, will you come with me to Kalgoorlie? And I said, yeah, I'll come with you. So we drove to Kalgoorlie at Easter time. So we left on the Friday and we were back on the Monday. We went all the way to Kalgoorlie, picked up Ray and come back. So that gave me a chance to talk to Arthur. And I found out a bit more about the army. And he said, well, if you're going to do it, he lived in Blacktown, New South Wales. So anyway, I talked to Dad and I said, I've talked to Arthur, and Arthur said it's not that bad. Anyway, so I ended up going to Puckapunyu in 1967
Where's Puckapunya?
Puckapunya was in Victoria.
Okay.
Everyone knows where Puckapunya is.
We do now.
We do now. Yeah.
It's, I don't know, north of Melbourne somewhere, but everyone went there to a huge camp which is called 2RTB, Second Recruit Training Battalion. So there's hundreds of these young men, and we all got in a plane at Adelaide Airport and flew to Mangalore. Mangalore was a little, like a parafield.
Had you been in an aeroplane before?
No, that was my first trip in a plane, a pocket friendship all the way to Mangalore.
Were you excited to get in a plane?
Oh, yeah.
Or were you a bit
And then you get in the back of a truck with all these other guys and they say, oh, when did you volunteer? I didn't volunteer. When did you? I didn't volunteer. Oh, I better keep my mouth shut. Anyway, as I got into our little bit of Puckapunya, I got to know one of the people was happens to be Matthew Nix's father, Dennis Nix. We're very good mates at this point of time, and everyone knows who Matthew Nix is. And I still talk to Dennis today. And another guy I went to high school with, which I sort of didn't, I'd lost him for a bit and then he came back into my life through the veterans. But yeah, so we got fully trained up and came home for Easter and had our break at Easter and then back to Puckapunya. And then from there, I got infantry, that's right. You put in your name for catering, tankies, whatever you want, and you don't get them. You get infantry, because that's where they're going to put me. Mm. So I'm thinking, this is not looking too good because I'm going to infantry. Anyway, at the march out parade, I'm saying, I've got a sore groin, Dad, because he came over, the mum and dad came over. And he said, well, what's the matter? I says, I don't know, I got a lump in my groin. And he says, I think you've got a hernia. Because he looked at it. He said, yeah, you got a hernia. You better stay here. I said, I'm not staying here. I'm going to Singleton. I've got the car all packed, ready to go to Singleton. And he said, you better tell him about that. So I did. When I got up to Singleton, which is way above Sydney, it's like it's 200 k's north of Sydney, somewhere there. So myself and another guy drove up to Singleton. And then the first couple of days we had a health inspection and I said, what's this, sir? And he said, you've got a hernia, son. You're on light duties. I'm not going anywhere. So all the other guys went off and started their infantry training. They all went to 3 Battalion. I've been pulled out of and another guy broke his arm, someone else broke their leg, so we're 3 of us, 3 musketeers. And we couldn't do a thing. So I'm sitting in the orderly room every day and the sergeant in the orderly room, he said, how long you got to wait for the operation? I said, about 2 weeks. He said, right. He says, I need you to do some jobs for me. He said, you can go and get me a slab of beer, go and get my dry cleaning. In my car? He said, no. He said, see that Land Rover out there? Do you reckon you can drive that? I said, well, sure I can. Because my mate had a Land Rover, see. Oh. So he said, right, show me how you drive it. So I jumped in with him and he drove around the parade ground. He said, right. He said, this will be like gold to you. Don't lose it. And I got this little wallet that says, I can drive a Land Rover. Mm. Mm. So,
why is that important, or is that going to come?
That is very important.
Why?
Very important. Because eventually I went to Canungra because I tell you, I had the operation.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So
I had the operation.
I made you jump ahead.
I had the operation. And then I had to convalesce at South Head, which is Watson's Bay. Mm. So I convalesced for 12 weeks while this huge cut was here to here, repaired itself. So I went out to Arthur's every weekend because of Blacktown, it was pretty good. I had 3 boy cousins out there and drive back with the forward to Blacktown on a Friday and come back on a Monday. And I sorted mail while I waited to convalesce. Then I went on to finish my infantry training at Ingleburn, and because I've had the operation, I'm all set, ready to go. And then I put on draft. That means you're going to Vietnam. So it's getting later in 67. It's getting about October 67 because I've been to Canungra. Everyone goes to Canungra. That's up in Queensland to do your battle efficiency course and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that look up on the board and if you've got a licence, you can upgrade to a truck licence.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. So I went to the the guy that was in charge, and I said, I got a driver's license. Can I upgrade? He said, yeah, sure. We want drivers over there, you know. You know you're going to Vietnam. Yeah, well, I know that now. Anyway, I drove down to Wollongong, back around Liverpool, and signed me off as a truck driver. And now I've got a double licence. I can drive a sedan and I can drive a truck.
Okay.
Fantastic. We'll be back to hear what happens next in Phil's story here on Life Bursts with Matt and Sarah.
This is Life's Bursts, where we love to share local stories with you. And Phill is sharing his at the moment. Phill, you've signed up and you're finding yourself now with a license to drive a truck. And where did things take you from there?
Thanks, Matt. Well, it's very unusual to get a licence when you're an infantry rifleman, but as luck had it, I got it. And so now I'm on draft to go to Vietnam. And there was a big Tet Offensive. You'll read about the Tet Offensive.
I have no idea. What's the Tet Offensive?
Where the Viet Cong were doing a lot of attacking in Saigon.
Okay.
So no one was going over there for a while because everything happened in Saigon, you know, had to land there and all that. Mm-hmm. So it was delayed a little bit. Not that I'm all edging to go, but you're waiting around playing cards at the back of the tent. Anyway, from there, we got on a plane, and not everyone goes by ship. The battalions went by ship. There's a few things that need sorting out because every Tuesday, Qantas had a big white bird ready to go. So every Tuesday, there was the odd sods and bods that all jumped on a plane, with male stewards, mind you, no girls on the plane. And we're all going to fly off to Ton Son. Ton Son Airport, if you know, is in Saigon. And we flew via Darwin to pick up a couple of others and then flew to Kuala Lumpur. I think that was for refuelling. And then on to Ton Son Airport. So it's the most amazing place. You're looking out the windows and all you can see is jet planes. There's 3 parallel strips at the busiest airport in the world at the time. Mm. So they've got a jet taken off alongside of you to go and do a sortie over somewhere, and helicopters and everything. So we got off the plane, and the place has been bombed. You know, you're looking at the reception, and it's got holes in the walls. And then we waited for our plane because everyone's got to go somewhere different. Mm-hmm. All the ones that got on the plane with us, only half of them went to where I was going. So I'm going to a place called Nui Dat, which is the main base, and I got another plane, a Caribou this time, and you're sitting on the floor in a Caribou, and it's 50 Ks, 60 Ks, I can't remember, and land, and there's dust flying everywhere and whatever, and you're in the middle of the military base now. Mm-hmm. So you get on the truck and with several other people. So I went over as a reinforcement. I didn't go as a battalion. So 1st Australian Reinforcement Unit, 1ARU. And the most interesting place, because the base, take this oval, well, we're right down here, and everything else is happening up there. So they expanded it in the year before, so that was all a bit new down here. So we had 3 battalion alongside of us and 1 AAU. So being a Rio, you're going to go to fill someone's place. Someone that's been shot, someone's been injured, someone's been killed. So this is going to be a bit of a, you know, a real culture shock.
At any time, did you feel frightened?
No.
Scared?
No.
Just full of adrenaline?
No, I'm full of adrenaline. I'm 21 years old. I've had my 21st birthday, because I forgot to tell you that. I had my 21st birthday at Puckapunyal. So now I'm moving into my 22nd year in 1968. So, yeah, it's February. And I'm going in, and everyone has to stay at 1 ARU for a fortnight to acclimatise and to be told what to do, what not to do, this, that and the other. So I'm sitting in my tent, and I started to write letters and everything, because that's how you communicate in those days, wrote letters. And someone come in, "You're Private Scroop?" "Yep, OC wants to see you." Across that building over there. And we had little buildings, and tents for what we slept in, but little main buildings that were put up by the carpenters as offices and that. "I see on your paperwork you've got a driver's licence." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Right, I want you to stay here." "Is that all right with you?" "Yeah, I think I'll stay here. Why? What am I going to do?" He said, "Well, we've got 2 Land Rovers, 3 Land Rovers out there and 2 trucks just right next to them." And I said, "Okay." He said, "I want you to stay as a driver. We can't get enough drivers because we're here. And this is 5 kilometres long by 4 kilometres wide. So you got to take the OC to a meeting, you got to get water, you got to get food, you got to get the movie for the night, you got to get letters, the mail. So I walked across it, and lo and behold, there's a friend of mine who, we've been in the army. So he was at Canungra with me, and I said, "Oh, good day." He said, "Oh, right." He says, "I'm glad I got you, because I'm going home in about a week's time." He'd done his 6 months or something, but he was going home to on passionate reasons to get divorced, something like that. Anyway, he ticked off, and then I joined these crew of drivers. There was only 5 of us, but we had about 60 to 70 people with the cooks and the OCs and the trainers and everybody, and the Rios, which were going out at a rate of sometimes 8 a day, because we had 3 battalions to supply. So we had 3 battalion, 1 battalion, and 7, I think. Yeah, because they were changing it, and not all at the same time. They were changing at different times. So, this is going to be an interesting job. So I got to know my way around the camp, and each day someone would have to go and get the water, and the water it meant getting the back of the truck, throwing all the jerry cans from the toilet blocks and the shower blocks, which is just a windy shower above your head. Pour water in it, held up by a rope, lower it down, pour the water, pull it up, tie it up, have a bit of a shower. And the cooks had to have 10 jerry cans a day. The IOC has to have his, and this, that and the other. So that was one of the jobs. That would take a couple of hours. So you'd have to get someone to give you a hand. And we'd go down right alongside the strip where you watch the planes come and go. You'd be bowsing all these jerry cans. And that was your water for 70 people. And then the mail run. Then you take the cook to get the food, because he'd have to go to his store and say, right, we're going to get this, this and this. And our laundry was done outside the camp at a place called Berea down the road, 5 k's away. And it would be your job or my job to go to Berea, but you'd have to have someone with you. So you'd have the Q store staff. He'd say, right, I'm coming with you. And you got 2 SLRs, a self-loading rifle, sitting alongside you, driving on the wrong side of the road with no door, no seatbelt, and just a steering wheel to hang on to, and he had the bar in front to hang on to, because we didn't have seatbelts.
Right, yeah.
Because this all would have hindered you getting out the vehicle in a hurry.
Yes.
And the open back, you throw all the laundry in there and take it to a particular contract. You knew where you had to go. You're told where to go. And then after you did the laundry run, you'd have a few guys wanting you to get boxes of cigarettes. So you go to the marketplace as well, buy the cigarettes. Then you get some ice for the bar. Ice was great. You'd have a block of ice, and in there was a bit of straw and a bit of weed, and everything was hanging out of these blocks of ice, because you didn't eat this stuff.
Right.
This is purely for the grog.
Yeah.
Typical.
And so you'd have all the laundry, and that would get wet from the blocks of ice, and you'd bring them back, and the ice was sliding everywhere. But you had your other man alongside of you. You couldn't send him at the back.
No.
So you're trying to wedge everything, and pandemonium.
Yeah.
But we did lots of jobs like that.
Right.
We had guys at an outpost called Apsuine and Dat Do, and places you'd never heard of before in your life. And we had to supply them as well, because they were out there in an outpost watching. For when the rice crop came on, the Viet Cong would come along to the head of and if you didn't give him his rice, he'd shoot you. So there was an outpost all around the place, and we were responsible. It was called the MATS, the Military Aid and I don't know, I can't remember what MATS meant, but we had to go out there, and we'd take 2 Land Rovers and machine guns and flak jackets those days with helmets on. But going to Berea, you're just in your normal greens. And I don't know how I didn't get shot, because we'd be driving through the village, and then Vung Tau was 25 k's away. And there was often, we had to take someone down to Vung Tau. I had to take a guy down there. And we had a couple of UD, unauthorised discharge, where one guy got shot. And I took him to his court case. I had his lieutenant here, who was his representative. I had his mate in the back, and me. We drove all the way to Vung Tau, and they all got out. And I said to the lieutenant, who am I going back with? I've got no escort now. He said, didn't you organise that, soldier?
Oh.
And I said, I didn't know I had to, sir. He said, well, you better get going. So they all got out. 3 of them got out, the prisoner, this guy and that guy. And I drove back all that 25 k's by myself.
Wow.
With one rifle, and I was thinking, this might be the end of you, Scroopy.
Yeah.
So anyway, then I did go out on 2 operations. If you ever got a minute to read The Minefield of Vietnam, in 1966, this colonel, he wanted to put in a minefield. So it was causing a lot of troubles because it was fenced off, it was 1 kilometre wide, and we could see it as this big. And so we went out there for a week's operation, and we're the backup for the tankies, because you can't go out and try and remove a minefield without infantry people watching, because you're their backup. So they went in with a tank and they tried to knock out these mines. It was called the Monster, and it dragged an RSJ front and back, and they're going to sweep all this area. Mind you, I can only see this and this. And they're going to do that as an experiment to see that they could knock it out, because they wanted to get rid of it. Because the girls were going in at night time, climbing over the fence, and then going along with a twig to find the mines. This was a barrier. They were trying to stop the Viet Cong from moving to a place called the Long High Mountains. So they'd come in along the beach, come in at the village of Dat Do, and then they'd move across country. So then they'd hit the minefield. But the girls used to go in and move.
We'll pause it there. It does sound like a problem. So we'll find out how that was resolved and your part in that right after this. We're chatting to Phill. This is Life Birth.
This is Life Burst with Matt and Sarah. We're chatting with Phill, and we have left everybody on a cliffhanger with a story that you were sharing with us. The girls go through with a twig to find
Mines.
Yeah.
How did they
Well,
resolve?
they were bamboo shafts that they'd prod around and find a mine and then lift it out. These things blow you apart.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And take them and put them on a track. So you'd find in the histories that 60 guys got killed through those mines.
Yeah.
And and they were trying to get rid of them. So what we could see was this and this. It was 12 kilometres long, and it took years to get rid of it. A big fence each side. But anyway, that was part of the sad part. There was lots of other things happening. Look up the minefields of Vietnam. Look up the Battle of Coral Balmoral, because that's something the Vietnam Veterans Federation run, which we ran last week in our hall at Marion. Please look them up and get to know that about the 26 men that we lost in a fortnight.
Wow.
And that's a very moving ceremony. We do we've inherited that one as something that we will always do at the Vietnam Veterans at Norfolk Road, Marion. But anyway, coming back, I came back from Vietnam.
Yes. How did you come back different?
I'd gone from a boy to a man, I think.
Yeah.
And very wary of someone dropping a bit of wood behind you and putting their foot on it, making it go bang, and then you jump, because we were, treated like terrible when we came back. I went to the RSL and I was told that you didn't go to a real war. What do you mean I didn't go to a real war? So I put the beer on the counter and walked out. I got challenged twice. And I really took it to heart, and the people that have challenged me are probably dead by now. And I had someone tell me that I never really went to Vietnam. I said, hang on, did I get these out of a Weet-Bix packet and put my medals in front of him? I haven't seen that guy for a couple of years, and he's still around. But he'll get his just desserts one day. Anyway, I came back, and then Mum said to me, we've got to go to see you back, son. Yeah, well, I'm sorry to be back, Mum.
I told you I'd come back alive.
Yeah, I came back all right, not a problem. I didn't get PTSD. I got a bit of skin cancer, and, because we drove around with no shirts on. Anyway, Mum said, we got a cabaret tonight, because it's December 68. So we got a cabaret on tonight for Christmas. You going to come? There'll be some girls there. So I said, yeah, I'll come. So I went along to the Ranella Hotel, which is still there today, the Crown Inn, and I met my wife.
Well, I'm sure she didn't come your wife straight away. Okay, so what did you do? Look across the room at each other?
Yes, we danced together, and she was with her sister and her girlfriend, and was love at first sight. Well, because I had a brand new car because I bought a little Mazda car.
So
Anyway,
love at first sight for you and the car?
I
or-
took the three of them home and I said, I'm going to take one of you out. You better make up your mind because I'll be back on Monday night. Because I'm moving into this huge family that I didn't know at the time. My mother-in-law and father-in-law had 9 children.
Wow.
And Jill was the eldest. She's got a twin. So anyway, I came back and Jill was standing on the veranda and I thought, oh, I knew it'd be you. So we went to the drive-in and then we dated for a couple of weeks and then I said, we were actually working in a jeweller shop in town and I'm thinking, I'm pricing an engagement ring with the jeweller while we're doing the shop fit out. Archer and Holland it was. Anyway, I came back and I couldn't get this ring until the day after Valentine's Day. So it's only February 69 by this time.
Right.
Yeah.
We've known each other for 6 weeks. And she thought I was going to get engaged on the
Valentine's Day.
But
Oh.
I got it the next day. I raced into town after work and I said, where's that ring? Oh, here, it's ready now. Because I had to size it. And so I gave it to her the next day.
How did you do it? How did you propose?
Oh, we went to Windy Point, as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I proposed up at Windy Point.
Fancy.
Yes, it was. It was very cool.
And she obviously said yes.
Yeah.
So,
And then we decided we'd get married on the exact day that we met, on the 20th of December. And we told mother-in-law. And she said, that's 5 days before Christmas. I said, so? Because we didn't really celebrate Christmas that much. With 9 kids, you celebrated Christmas huge. So anyway, I slept over many a night at their place. I slept on the lounge and I had this dog, big sugar dog, big black thing. And it come and kicked me off and try and put a bum right where my feet were. But the family's great and we all still love each other. Peter's passed on, of course. But Freda, that's my mother-in-law's name, Freda. She's 94 and in a nursing home. Not quite 94. Next month, 94. And she's still alive. So I have to get her to...
in the last couple of minutes, take us through life from there to now in a whirlwind.
Right, okay. So we've got 3 kids,
Yeah.
3 marvellous kids. We've got Kath at 41, sorry, Kath.
I'm sure they want you to share the age of them.
Oh, okay. And the twin, now we've got twins. So we've got a
Oh,
boy-girl
look at that.
twin,
Uh-huh.
the same as their mother, the boy-girl twins.
Yeah.
So we got Deb and Brenton, and they're 48, 49, 49. Come on.
Too bad, kids. Everyone now knows how old you are.
We're still, and 7 grandchildren from 12 up to 22. And we're having a ball and we're caravanning and I'm metal detecting and I'm doing things for the Vietnam veterans.
Yes,
and-
tell us about that at Marion. You meet together. So you
Right.
obviously found a group
Yeah.
of people that are like-minded.
Vietnam Veterans Federation,
Yeah.
which is alongside of the Marion RSL, where that guy told me I never went to a real war. That's over there and I'm here.
Okay.
And we had to relocate because when the train line went under Morford Road, we had the Scout Hall, Warradale Scout Hall, which is now demolished because they needed that land to put the road under, to put the train line under. And so we had to find somewhere to go. So we found a little spot alongside the RSL. And we've got probably 200 members, but we only see about 100. But as we're all ageing, and we've got the sign up now because I'm in charge of putting the sign up, and that's going up in a couple of weeks. I'm sure somewhere down the track, because it's on Marion land, council land, this is, so the younger veterans, come along. We need you to come and take over. We're all in our 70s, and we need that younger generation to come along to our hall and start integrating, because in a few years' time, I'm afraid it might just be a bingo hall, and we wouldn't like to see that. It's all military at the moment. And we've got our precious cross up there, and you know we just love it so much. And we've got a great president at the moment.
It's great that you can provide that for some
Yeah.
shared experience.
And we all share the experiences, but we don't dwell on it.
Yeah,
I might say to
Yeah.
you something about Vietnam, that's all, and it's finished. We don't dwell on it.
Yeah, well, Phill, thank you so much for sharing those stories with us. You've certainly had an adventurous life starting right back at the beginning and to share. And I know there's always more to share, but thank you for just skimming the surface. You've given us lots to think about and to look up as well. Some great history.
Yeah, thank you.
This-
Thanks for having me.
It has been wonderful. So this has been Life Burst with Matt and Sarah. You can catch us wherever you get your podcasts from, and on Facebook and YouTube and community radio and television as well. I'm Sarah.
I'm Matt. Thanks for sharing the journey with us.
Life Bursts is hosted by Matthew Karat and Sarah Freeman, with production by Reese Jarrett and Kay Hoshraw Ozadigan. For more episodes of Life Bursts, go to rawcut.com.au. This is a RawCut production.